Today we're going to be continuing on our theme, and today I'm going to be talking about the supernatural walk. Now, if you're joining us and not from tNCC today, we're also so glad that you wanted to be a part of our church at home today, and I hope that you'll enjoy what I'm sharing as well. Now, when we talk about a supernatural walk, okay, we're going to be sharing the story about Jesus walking on the water, but actually we're going to be talking so much more about just walking physically like that. You know, I think a lot of times if you've been in church for a while, you probably heard people say like, you know, about your Christian walk or your spiritual walk or how is your walk with Jesus? And I realized that a lot of verses that are sometimes even translated life are actually in the original language were the word walk, something that we walk out. And I was thinking, well, why is that? Why do we say that it's a walk and not just a life? And I was thinking because the amazing thing is that in Jesus, there's always progress and movement and taking steps and going forward. That's what walking is, right? You know, and I think that the worldly point of view is always telling us that we're trying to attain something and reach a place. You know, maybe it's like reach that certain place in your profession or where your financial stability is, or, you know, to get married and have kids and reach something, and then you stay there, then you're stable, and it's about staying, you know, in the place that you've reached. But you know, it's so different in Jesus. And I think that Jesus wants us to remember that with him, it's not attaining a certain place and good enough and I'll stay here, but there's always a walk, taking steps, being changed day by day, being changed like him, from glory to glory, always a progression and a change. You know, even the Apostle Paul, he said like this, I haven't reached that perfection of being like Jesus. I'm not there yet, but this is the one thing that I do. Forgetting what is behind and going forward to what is ahead, to be changed even more. And I think that during this quarantine time, lockdown time, I think we're all very aware how far we are maybe from being just Christ-like as we should be. I'm sure all of our spouses know how many not so Christ-like moments we've had. But the good news is that even though we've been changed by Jesus to where we are today, and even though we've experienced him, he's not done with us yet. And we're going to continue to walk with him. We're going to continue to have progress and movement to go forward. We're not staying just where we are right now. And I think that's actually encouraging. Okay, I actually find that encouraging that Jesus is still working on me. Okay, I'm still a work in progress. I'm so thankful for how far he's brought me, but we're not there yet. And that's actually a good thing. Jesus finished everything on the cross. That is something that we believe and we declare as a part of tNCC. Amen. It is done on the cross, but it's not completely become a reality yet in our lives. We are still being changed and moving forward with him. So today we're talking all about our walk, our walking with Jesus. And we're going to look at the story of how he actually walked on the water. Now, this story comes in just where we left off last week. So last week was the story of Jesus feeding now 5,000. Or more than 5,000, okay? And right after that, it actually talks about when the people saw that miracle of being fed, then they said, wow, this Jesus is the prophet, is the Messiah, is the one we're waiting for. And Jesus knew that they actually were gonna force him, try to make him their king in that moment. And it wasn't time for that yet. So what Jesus did is he wanted to go up into the hill and pray and be by himself. And so the story goes like this, that when evening came, we're starting from John 6, 16 and 17, his disciples went down to the lake where they got into a boat and set off across the lake for Capernaum. By now it was dark and Jesus had not yet joined them. A strong wind was blowing and the waters grew rough. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the water, and they were frightened. But he said to them, "It is I, don't be afraid." Then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading. Now, when I first listened to this, I was thinking like, did the disciples abandon Jesus? Because I thought that was kind of how it sounded. But when I read this same story through the other Gospels, I realized that no, that Jesus had actually told them to get into the boat and cross over to the other side. This was his directions. They weren't like getting tired of waiting for Jesus and taking a boat and leaving him. Okay, Jesus needed that quiet moment. He needed to get away from the crowds. He needed to go spend time with the Father. And so he told his disciples, go on ahead without me. Just go. And I was thinking like this, that if the disciples had not gotten into the boat, and I think maybe it took them a while to actually like get into the boat and leave Jesus behind because they waited until nighttime. So they're probably sitting there like waiting. He's going to come, right? Like we can't actually leave Jesus. Like he told us to go, but are we really going to leave him behind? So maybe it took them a while to actually say that he told us to go, we should go and get into the boat and go to cross over to the other side. And I was thinking this, that if they hadn't gotten into the boat, if they had stayed on the shore waiting for Jesus, they never would have experienced the supernatural. And the whole reason they experienced the supernatural is because they were walking out what Jesus told them to do. And I was thinking, church, that it's such a good lesson for us. If you're feeling like, I never see the supernatural take place, I haven't seen any miracle take place, but it could be because we're not stepping out and into a place where there needs to be the supernatural. Maybe we're staying where there's, just common sense and where we just think that things are supposed to fit and what's supposed to happen. And that's why we're not able to see things take place. Sometimes people will say to me, like after what I preached last week, 2 weeks ago, right? Like, Susan, I've never seen anyone get healed. And I'm like, okay, but are you praying for people to get healed? Are you going and ministering to the sick? Well, no, okay, so we're not going to see something unless we take a step out to do it. And so the first thing where it all starts from is when Jesus speaks. Church, we're not running around during this theme of supernatural, like, ooh, want to see the miracle, ooh, focus on the supernatural, gotta make it happen, gotta make it happen. No, what we're saying is this, is that when Jesus tells us to do something, even though it looks impossible, even though we don't understand why, but when we step out and follow the source, when Jesus speaks, it means he has a plan, and he can even perform the miraculous, the supernatural, to make it happen. We don't hear it in this story in John. I guess he thought it wasn't important enough. But in the other Gospels, it talks about when Jesus came, that is also the moment that Peter stepped out to walk on the water. And did you notice that Peter, okay, he's a fisherman, so he knows his comfort zone is definitely in the boat, not out on the water, okay? In the boat. But why did he step out? He said first that, Jesus, if you call me, if you say to come, then I will do it. And the whole reason that he could step out on the water, it started from a word from Jesus. And church, I'm declaring today that if you can look through the Bible and everywhere, how did the impossible start? It all starts when he speaks a word. We're not trying to change impossible situations, but what we're saying is this, is that when Jesus says to do something, he will surely come through and make a way. He will be able to do it no matter how difficult it seems. He can turn things around. And when he says something, it will happen. Amen. And of course, we're not physically talking about walking on the water today. We're talking more about like our life walk, But I was reminded of a story of the only group of people who have ever heard walking on water. Okay, don't believe it. People are like, oh, watch me, I'm going to go out and walk on the water. Please don't follow such weird ministries and things, okay? Because it's not supposed to be a showy thing. And the testimony that I remember comes from Indonesia, actually, about 50 years ago when there was a big revival in East Indonesia. And there was a team of young people. And one night they came to the river and they're going to cross over. They wanted to go to a village on the other side. But the river was really roaring with water. So they thought they just stayed on that side. But God spoke to them to cross over the river. And the quality is not great in this video, but I had to let him share it. One of those teens himself who grew up to be a mature man now, 𝗪𝗪𝗫. Let's look at this interview and see what he had to say about walking on water.
Thinking to go the next day or whatever, but since the Lord specifically said cross now, so we did. Well, after a little hesitation, one asked the other one, said, are you sure, and all that, and we finally said, okay, if the Lord wants us to do it, we do it. So the team actually crossed the river, and the unusual or funny part about it said, as we crossed the river, the water never come any higher than our knees. So we were thinking, this is great. Maybe it wasn't really that deep to begin with, So we're happy, so we crossed over and we went over to the other side. Now, after we got to the other side, that the people over in this side, which weren't part of the team, they said, oh yeah, maybe the river wasn't that deep. They have the same thought. So they tried to get into the water, but when they got into the water, that is when they realized that really the miracle has taken place, because they almost killed themselves by walking in onto the water. So we got over to the other side, walked over to the village and preached the gospel, and that is when the first man was raised from the dead, and I can tell you about that later, and that's how the whole village came to the Lord. But you see, one thing I would like to say about the miracle is that when it was happening, we weren't even realize it, because at that time our mind wasn't in the miracle. Our mind was in accomplishing the task, doing what God wants us to do. So if we keep our mind in the task at hand, or in obeying the word or the command that God has given us, then it is His call as He sees the need for a miracle. Well, actually the miracle is to facilitate us going from point A to point B to preach the gospel. So miracles is not the end on itself. It is the means, it is the tool, it is the help, so to speak, that God has given us so that we can reach point B to preach the gospel, so that these people can come to the Lord. You know, a friend of mine asked me some years later and said, Mel, you guys still cross the river? And he meant that particular part of the river. I said, no. He said, why? I said, well, because the Australians came and built a bridge over that river, so it's easier to just cross the bridge than trying to cross the river.
I love that testimony so much. I hope you can understand it, and even though it's not, the quality isn't great, but what he said is this, is that they were not even looking for the miracle. They didn't even know they're walking on the water. But what happened is when Jesus told them to go, they only knew that. You have to go. You have to go tonight to that village. And what he says is the miracle was not the end. The miracle is not what they're looking for, but they were just looking to follow Jesus. And the miracle is the tool, the means that brought them to be able to do that, to experience it. And I love the way that he explained it. And then he said that they don't go back and try to walk on the water. They use the bridge that somebody built. Okay? The reason they had to walk on the water that night is because at that time there was no bridge built. And why did they have to go that night? Because that night someone had just passed away, and that would be the first person they raised from the dead that would cause that whole village to believe. And this testimony to me was just an example of us following what Jesus says, that when we follow what Jesus says, He is the one who will make it happen. That's up to Him, is to provide the means, to cause the miracle, to change the natural through His supernatural power, to make it all happen. And so we hear from Jesus. And then what else is that? When we hear from Jesus, it's not just hearing from Him and then going off and doing it, but walking in the supernatural means keeping our eyes focused on Jesus. Everything is from Jesus, everything is through Jesus, and everything is for Jesus. And so it's keeping our eyes on Him. You know, I know you know this part of the story, that when Peter, you know, he heard that Jesus said, come, and he got out and he was walking, and it's like, wow, experiencing, you know, something amazing. But then he looked at the wind and the waves, and his focus got so distracted on the storms around him, and he began to sink, being caught up with the natural things around him. And so what is so important is keeping our eyes on Jesus. And I think keeping our eyes on Jesus and letting our perspective and our eyes and the way we see things being changed by Him. You know, I love this verse. It kept coming up to me again and again. 2 Corinthians 5:7. For we walk by faith and not by sight. This is written like as a declaration of us as believers, of who we are today. How do we live our lives? This is how we are walking. We're taking steps, making decisions in our life, not by what is seen, but by what is unseen. Not by the natural, but by the supernatural. For we walk by faith. We walk by supernatural, by what is unseen, by what Jesus is speaking to us, and not by what is seen in the natural with our eyes. And church, this is what we want to gain from this theme of supernatural, is to remind us today that we are not limited to what is seen and what is felt and what is heard here on earth, but we have something so much greater. We have Jesus, the unlimited resources of Jesus and Himself with us. And I believe that how we see things and our perspective will be changed. Because you know what I found recently, I think especially because of, in the last few years, a lot of topics have been very heated and people have different perspectives, about politics. Ooh, don't bring up those topics, and things, and especially now with the COVID situation and government's decisions, people have their perspectives on what is right and what is wrong. And these past few weeks, I'm trying to read all the different sides and see everyone's perspectives, because I realized how easy it is sometimes to only be friends on social media, only be at our news, that is the perspective that we like and is the same as us. I was thinking about how we sometimes block things out, and maybe even we don't realize it. We block out the supernatural and the voice of the Spirit speaking to us sometimes, because we're so focused on the wrong thing. And I when the businesses opened this week, one of the first things I did is I went out and got some new glasses. Now, I'm not getting glasses because I'm almost reaching the big 4-0 and my eyesight is changing and I can't read. No, that's not why. I've actually worn glasses on and off since I got my driver's license when I was 17. I have a little bit of a weak eye and should have it for night driving and such. And I realized lately that, okay, I'll just put them on so I show you. I know that when I wear glasses, I look like a total geek or a school teacher. That's okay. Now, I got these new glasses with lens because I realized during the MCO, I was getting a lot of headaches. And these are special lens with my prescription, but that block out blue light. Okay, and I hope it will help. I only worn it for a few days. Okay, so I can't tell you yet. But it blocks out the blue light. You may have even seen that when I wore them just now. A little bit, you can see a blue light kind of on the lens. And it's because it's harmful to the eyes. And so I just thought I'd try out this new lens. What I realized is that it can block out something. And I think that sometimes we have a lot of glasses on that are according to our perspective or what we've heard or what we experienced before. And we are sometimes blocking out other voices or perceptions or ways of seeing things. And I was even thinking like this, I think even in our church, not going to cause a debate here, but I think we have different perspectives sometimes. Some people are saying that the government should not lift up, the lockdown and MCO, because if we do that and people go out and it spikes, we're going to have to go through this all over again. But people on the other side, you're saying that, but I need to go out. I need to eat. I have nothing in my house left to eat. I need this, or I'm going to lose my business or my life or everything. And I think that, of course, I want to listen to both sides. But this week, I experienced something that really brought me to see a different perspective of someone's life. Of course, I said my team's doing it in Indonesia, but when things lightened up here, one of the first things I wanted to do is take some grocery packages, some care packages to families who needed it. And I met this woman, and when I realized that she should have to stay at home, and I saw her home was not really a home. And I came to her door, which was basically a room behind a little skinny alleyway behind someone's house. No windows. Nothing, just a room with her and her husband and her children inside and no food left. And she had just gotten eggs from the neighbor the night before to be able to eat and feed her kids. And when I saw that we're telling her to stay at home, I realized that her perspective is so different than me when I can stay at home with a fridge full of food, and internet and windows and a yard to walk out in. And I realized that sometimes perspectives can be so different. And I realized the way that Jesus looks at us is even so different how we see ourselves. When Jesus looked at his disciples in the boat, he was so filled with compassion. He came down from the hill. Don't know if, his plan to come down, in the middle of the night. And he came out to them in the storm. He saw them in the middle of the storm and he came to them. And he stopped the storm and he brought them to their destination. And even more than that, when they were frightened and screaming, it's a ghost, and freaking out, he still saw potential in them to be leaders. And I saw that the eyes of Jesus are so different. And I just love that Jesus is so stable and Jesus is so gracious and his eyes are different. And church, I just want to grow and I want to see more like Jesus. And I believe that he's changing the way that we see things. And I believe that we're not going to live our lives just because of what is reported to us or what people are saying around us. People may be on the same level as us, but we're going to be able to see people at different levels and in different ways and see them with the love of Jesus. And Peter lost his focus. He took his eyes off of Jesus, and he didn't see what Jesus saw in him. He saw the storm and he got distracted and he sank. But the beautiful thing is that Jesus didn't let him sink. And Jesus didn't stand there giving lectures about how he shouldn't be sinking. But Jesus stretched out his hand, picked him up. And you know, that's the amazing thing, that Jesus will not let you drown. Jesus won't let you drown. And even maybe sometimes we've stepped out and we want to experience more of the supernatural. We want to share the gospel with someone. We want to pray with someone. We want to start something new out of our comfort zone. And we step out and we fail. The beautiful thing is, church, is that the grace of Jesus is never far from you. And even when you sink, he picks you back up. And look at this picture, okay? When Jesus lifted up Peter, he walked with Peter and they went back into the boat. And Peter had that beautiful experience of walking with Jesus in the impossible, in the supernatural. And church, even when you fail, you've gone further because you have experienced something new, and you've gone out and you've stepped out and you've tried with Jesus. And I believe that Jesus was still proud of Peter, and he still walked with him. At least he tried, and he got to experience that special moment. So we don't have to worry about failing, and we never have to worry about drowning. Why? Because we have the faithful love and grace of Jesus always picking us back up. And as we go on in this story, I was thinking like this, because we just read from the same chapter last week in John 6, and Pastor Peter picked up this really great verse, and it said like this, that before Jesus did any of this, in verse 6, for he already knew what he was going to do. Jesus already knew. And I believe that in this story, it's true as well. You know, when the disciples went off, of course, Jesus is not going to steal somebody's boat. You know, of course, how is Jesus going to get out to them in the middle, across over to the other side? Of course, Jesus already knew what he was going to do. He already knew that natural limitations, not having a boat, does not stop him. You know, and he walked out in what was already prepared, what he'd already planned and thought of. And the lack of a boat did not stop him from getting to the disciples and bringing them to the other side, just as he said. And church, I want to encourage us today. You know, I've been thinking, I guess as I'm preaching this, about a message I preached, one of my first messages ever in tNCC. For all of you oldies and your members, you can remember this. He goes before you. Saying that, yes, that he has gone before us and prepared the miracles, the supernatural, the provision, whatever it is that we need. So let's not live in a lifetime of being stuck, we're in our homes and maybe some people even now are in fear or in depression or feeling like they can't move, and you get a feeling of being stuck. But no, church, he has gone before us. He's opening doors, whether it's doors and opportunities for us to step into, whether it's provision, whether it's miracles, whether it's open hearts of someone that you want to reach. For him, he has gone before us. He's gone into your tomorrow. He's gone into your next week. We don't know what's going to happen. You know, I think in January, February, we didn't know that all of this was going to happen. A few months ago, we didn't know how long and what extreme this was going to take place, but he did. He's not surprised by the storm. He's not surprised when he saw his disciples freaking out in the boat. He wasn't surprised by that. He already knew what he was going to do. And in our lives as well today, he has gone before us, preparing for us. This is what it says in his word. In Ephesians 2:10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. He has gone before us preparing good works, good things. It could be good things for us to enjoy. It could be good things for us to do, to bless and help and change and be there for somebody else. He's gone before us preparing these good things. And now some translations even say it this way. It is his desire. It is his will. It's his heart for us. He wants us to step out and walk into them. Now, church, we have such a good God, a gracious God, a loving God who's so good to us that he will not force us. He didn't come in there and chuck Peter out of the boat, right? I mean, he wants us to step out and join him. He wants us to walk together with him. When he says to his disciples, follow me, he didn't throw a leash around their neck and drag them along. He wants us to hear him, see him, and step along with him. And I want to encourage us that I know these are difficult times, But when he calls you out, you put your eyes on him, you can see, wow, Jesus has something for you. We're going to take steps and walk with him and discover, as we take those steps with him, that he's already gone before us and prepared good works for us to do. Church, I know that as we stand here on a Sunday morning, looking ahead to this week, there are good things this week for you. There are good things. You're going to call somebody and be an encouragement to them. You're going to pray for somebody and see a miracle take place. There are things, good things waiting for you this week. And when you feel those nudges, when you hear his voice, let's step out and take action. And even if we fail, he will not let us drown. He will pick us up and he will even walk with us into the supernatural. I hope that we're getting something out of this today, that we will walk out what Jesus has said. We will walk with our eyes on Jesus, and we will walk out what he has already prepared. Is already there for us. You know, as a church of tNCC, I think I always like to say that we're celebrating Jesus' finished work on the cross. That's right, church. What he needed to do for us is already done. It is finished. But as we discarded the message here today, maybe we have not received that complete perfection. Maybe we have not yet totally stepped into or been changed into completely all that he already purchased and bought for us. You know, as I was preparing this church, I thought about something that I heard someone say many years ago, that I don't want to leave this earth without receiving, without living out everything that Jesus already paid for. We've received a lot. We've experienced so much. We've been changed this far by what Jesus did on the cross. But there's still more for us. There's still more to receive. There's still more to give out. There's still so much more that Jesus has for us. And I'm so glad that this walk with Jesus is not just stuck sitting there waiting for one day to go to heaven or waiting for the earth to end, but we are walking with him. We are being changed. There's something new and exciting every day that Jesus has already prepared for us. So we want to walk with him. Now, if you're listening to this message today, you're not really from tNCC and you don't know Jesus and you're not walking with him, living with him, but you'd like to know more, please message us. We have a WhatsApp number. We'd love to get in touch with you. We'd love to hear more from you. We'd love to answer your questions and pray with you. And for each and every one of us, whatever your prayer needs are, church, we're still here together. We may not hopefully soon, be allowed to gather together in our building, but we are still available to pray together, to believe, and to believe that Jesus is speaking to each and every one of us, and he has good things. If he can walk on water, he is above the natural circumstances, then it is so in our lives today as well. He is above all of that. And I also want to encourage each and every one of us today that we can step out of our comfort zones. I've had to do that a lot during this period. My comfort zone is usually getting on a plane, flying somewhere and speaking in front of people. And I've had to change a lot of things and how I do things and everything. And even going back to online studies and school, which I haven't gone to for 17 years. And so I'm stepping out of my comfort zone. But the thing that is so amazing is that when we want to step out, we walk with Jesus, we will be experiencing the supernatural. We'll be experiencing his miracles. And I just want to encourage you, church, that see him in all things. You know, Martin shared a testimony last week about how, you know, he heard Psalm 103 from a friend. It was exactly what we preached the next day. There is more than 1,000 chapters in the Bible. What more than just little pieces of verses? Thousands and thousands of them. It's not a coincidence when something like that happens. It is God at work speaking to us. And so we want to experience even more of that. So we want to have ears that are even more open to hear what he's saying, eyes that are even more open to see what he sees. And then we step out with him and see him do the amazing work. So it's all from him. It's all through him. It's all for him. It's all about Jesus. Experiencing more of what he's already purchased for us. So can I just pray with you together, church, as we close things off today? And Jesus, we just believe that you are speaking to us. You are guiding us. You are not far from us when we're in the midst of a storm. And I thank you, Jesus, that even in the midst of storms, not only do you bring peace and you could calm the storm, but we could even walk upon the raging seas. We can even walk upon the waves with you, that we're not limited to what is happening around us, but we are tapping into the unlimited resources and power and grace and love of who you are, Jesus. And so, Jesus, we're asking you that we want to hear you more and see you more and step out and walk even more with you, out of our comfort zones. And we believe that when we reach the end of naturally what we can do, that we'll see you step in supernaturally and do what only you can do. And we declare that over all of our situations right now, that you are walking before us this week and planning such good things, planning good works for us to do. We want to walk in that and experience you, Jesus, in the midst of this storm. We thank you and praise you, Jesus. Amen.